That's very true.
Okay. How about this overpopulation thing you hear about all the time, that we're going to breed so much that we won't have any food and we'll overpopulate the planet, destroy it that way? How much of that is true?
Boy, that's another very big subject. So the first thing to remember is that total fertility rates are collapsing around the world. In order to keep population stable, an average woman in the world has to have 2.1 babies per lifetime. So 2.1 is the replacement scenario.
Why isn't it just two?
Oh, because you assume that some babies will die before they reach adulthood or old age. You know, some will die in childhood, then due to accidents and so forth. So 2.1 is the replacement rate, and those are collapsing in most of the world except in Africa. So in places like the Czech Republic and Slovakia, where I'm from, total fertility rate per woman is something like 1.4, 1.3. So, you know, Japan is below replacement level. Most countries without immigration are below replacement level in the developed world, okay? Which means that all the best research, including a recent study in Lancet that you will be familiar with, found that there will be a leveling off of population in about 2060, 2070, and then population will decline. So by 2100, in 80 years' time, there will either be right now there are 7.8 billion people in the world. Today, there are 7.8 billion people in the world. By 2100, there is either going to be 8.8 or 6.8 billion people. So either we are going to have a slightly more or slightly less people in the world than today, but there's going to be that curve. We are going to peak at about 10 billion, and then it's going to decline to either 9 billion or 7 billion, depending on, you know, it's very difficult to prognosticate 80 years hence, but there's no reason to suspect that total fertility rates for women around the world are going to skyrocket in the future, because what we observe is that as women get educated and as they enter the workplace, they have fewer and fewer babies. And of course, the whole world is improving economically, and more women are entering into the workplace, even in developing countries, as a result of which their opportunity costs are rising. So that's just a very fancy economics phrase for saying that if a woman stays at home, taking care of the children, her opportunity cost is if the woman forgoes employment and making money because she has job opportunities, her opportunity cost of staying at home increases. In other words, when women are given a chance of going to employment and making money, they prefer it over staying at home, taking care of children. Now, of course, as your father would know and pointed out a number of times, and I agree with that completely, if women do decide to stay at home and take care of children, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. All I'm saying is that there seems to be a general trend that as countries become richer and women get education, they start having fewer babies, and many of them opt to go to work. So the first thing to point out about population growth is that it's not going to continue to extend indefinitely. There's going to be a peak in about 2060, 70, and then it's going to decline. Secondly, it's not necessarily clear that having fewer people around is a good thing. And that's because people are the only generators of ideas, which is to say that if you believe, like I do, that ideas is what drives technological progress forward, then you want to have more people having those ideas. It is much easier to imagine a genius emerging from a population of 10 billion people who will know how to cure cancer than from a population of 100 people. Simply the mathematics of it means that the larger population you have, the more likely you are to have the geniuses at the top end of the intellectual achievement who will be able to produce solutions to fusion and fission and cancer and God knows what else. So having fewer people is not necessarily a good thing, and I'm not particularly concerned about population, even though the trends are very clear. And the final thing, let me talk about food. According to the United States Department of Agriculture, on average, people should consume about 2,000 calories per person per day. Now, obviously, there are huge differences between very active males, say, I don't know, somebody who is working in construction, and an elderly woman in a retirement home who needs many fewer than 2,000 calories. But on average, you want your country to have access to at least 2,000 calories per person per day. Today, in sub-Saharan Africa, supply of calories per person per day is almost 2,500.
That's fantastic.
So that means that famines have basically disappeared from the world outside of war zones, or where countries are really badly managed, like Zimbabwe, for example, or where you have wars like Yemen. But in normally run countries right now, as a general rule, there are more calories available than are strictly speaking necessary. And that includes the world's poorest continent, which is Africa.
Wow, that's great.